the idea is this. You've got a box over here. Remember, we had our three boxes, right? Philosophy is these three boxes. We have ethics, epistemology, and then metaphysics. Remember those three Tupperware boxes? Type in yes if you remember the boxes at the beginning. We talked about what a philosophy was, and I had these three glass bottles. Now, you can have a fourth one, which would be political philosophy, right, which presupposes ethics, and ethics presupposes epistemology, and epistemology presupposes metaphysics. Well, if you look at this box over here, the inside one, because that's the one we're interested in, you can give it more detail now. So what you have here is a finer grained or more granular depiction of what's going on inside this box. So what do you have in the metaphysics box? You have further boxes. You're going to have a box in which you're going to put all the official stuff that you recognize in your ontology. So remember, Quine was unhappy with species because species are kind of weird. He's much more happy with particular cats than he is with cathood. So he doesn't want to put cathood in his box, his official ontology. But he's still going to have to explain cathood. So remember the method of paraphrase, right? He was able to describe species being cross-fertile by just stringing together a long enumerative list of particular animals combining with each other and just putting disjunctions between all of them such that all you need is one to successfully pair and make an offspring in order for the claim to be true, right? He's not a fan of the species, and he didn't have to have a species. He can just say there are only particular things in here. So this box that I've highlighted in red, that's your official ontology. That's the stuff you recognize as really real. Now, chances are that box is going to contain less stuff than the stuff that's available out there as candidates for existence. So there's the things you want to say truly exist, and then there's the things that present themselves in front of your tribunal, your philosophical tribunal, and say, I'm a candidate for existence. I'd like to claim that I exist, right? So for instance, someone comes up to you, makes a claim, says such and such exists, and you're kind of like the judge sitting at the desk, and you're hearing their plea in order for you to kind of give them the stamp of approval to let them enter into this box of official ontology. But let's suppose you don't let them in. And let's suppose they say something perfectly respectable. So someone says, look, I study cats. And you say, okay, what's their name? Like you say, I'm at UBC. I'm taking a BA in biology, and I want to become a veterinarian who studies cats. And then you say, well, what's their name? Is it fuzzball? Is it such and such? Like, no. When I mean cats, I don't just mean particular cats that we name. When I say I study cats, I don't just study good old little fuzzball who weighs a specific weight, like 2.4 kilograms, right? I study cats in general. Well, then you want to say, oh, and that's got to make sense, right? The person who tells you they study cats in general, that's got to make sense. So what you're going to end up with is you'll have a box for all the leftovers. And you can imagine, I'm going to change the color over here just to make things even clearer. The box in blue then that's going to be all your leftovers. All the stuff that's legit, but not so legit that you want to claim that they exist. They exist in a derivative manner, right? They don't actually exist full on themselves. They depend on something else. Cathood depends on cats, right? So cats are going to figure in the red box. Cathood's going to be in the blue box. And then when your friend tells you that they want to specialize in studying cathood, essentially rephrased in philosophical jargon, that's what your friend wants to become a veterinarian does. They want to study the category of feline. What you take that to mean is, oh, the set of all particular cats, and you know that's just a shorthand. And you'll give a story for reducing what they've said to stuff that's actually legit and official. So far, so good, everyone. Type in clear if that's clear. Ask a question if you have a question. Just a reminder what we did last week, right? And we saw tools for sort of reducing or figuring out, how to translate, because there are facts, like there's facts here. We're talking about facts. There's lots of facts that figure in the leftovers. For instance, it is a fact that people take the bus. But do I have to say that people show up here and buses show up here? Whoa, you might want to slow down. You saw all the hard work that we had to do just for mountain. It is a fact that people climb mountains. It doesn't mean that because it's true that people climb mountains, like people and mountains are over here, that I necessarily want to put people and mountains over here. I might want to do a little bit of a detour, right? And there's different ways in which these less official things, right, get reduced to or explained in terms of the official ontology. There's different ways. And as Carl pointed out, we ended by flagging a couple of those, right? And in general, the whole thing of explaining the unofficial stuff and the official stuff rests on the idea of ontological dependence. So the unofficial stuff ontologically depends on the official stuff. And we said that the notion of ontological dependence here is familiar and intuitive. It is the sense in which a house depends on the bricks of which it is made, an organism depends on its cells, a university depends on its buildings, students, and faculty, a painting depends on the arrangement of some splashes of paint, and so on. And as Carl pointed out, some of the most interesting work in metaphysics concerns the nature of the various ontological dependence relations that entities bear to other entities. We'll just mention a few here, which we will discuss further in the chapters that follow. So if you were to systematically say, okay, what are the sorts of arrows here that people use, right, that philosophers can use to explain the unofficial stuff, right? You can taxonomize those, exactly. So you can do like a zoologist would, and you could study the different kinds of appeals that people make. And we just looked at three, right? Mereological relations, realization relations, and supervenience. And the one that I think is most intuitive and easiest to start with is, and that's the one we'll be looking at in a moment, and we'll be spending time today, is mereological, which is the philosophically technical jargon for part-whole relations. Mereology is the study of part-whole relations. And these are the sorts of relations that objects bear to one another when one object is a part of another object, or one object has the other as parts. For example, when a brick is a part of a house, this is an example of a mereological relation. And so the interesting things are going to be in that vicinity today. There are more things that need to be said. Remember, this is just a sampler. But these would get, we'd just be off course. It'd be too much on our plate. So we're just going to focus on that today. And we're going to study mereological relations. All right. And so that's going to bring us to where we want it to be, which is burgers and bread. Now, if you know anything about burgers, burgers are made of bread. And there's lots of things you can put in between. But let me ask you a question now. Could we live in a universe, and again, don't be too fanciful here, just think plausibly here. Can bread exist without burgers? Can we have a world in which there's bread but no burgers? Say yes or no. Tell me if that makes sense. A universe in which bread exists but burgers don't exist. Yes, that's the correct answer. Why? There's some good answers here, because we had bread before burgers, which is true. I mean, a large time span, bread was around, but not burgers. It takes more than bread to make a burger. True, but it takes more than bread to make a burger. I'm not sure that does exactly the work we wanted to do, but Tanny says it's a part of the building blocks. Bread is used for other things. Bread does not need burgers in order to exist. Yeah, that kind of says what we wanted to say. Now I want why. Bread suchness, burger thisness, that's not super clear. Because burgers are not an ingredient in the bread making process. That's interesting. Gavin, that's a clever way of putting what Gavin just said. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name well, but it kind of, if we say we had bread before burgers, one explanation is what Gavin said, because burgers are not an ingredient in the bread making process, whereas, Gavin, would you agree, breads are an ingredient in the burger making process, right? Yeah, cool. Gavin, okay, cool. Did I do that right, Gavin? Cool, thank you, my friend. Curtis says, it's like an organ, multiple parts making a system. Without each part cannot be called what it is referred to as a whole. Yeah, there's nothing about burgers that bread depend on. Well, bread doesn't depend on burgers, right? That's for sure. I like, because Sundish makes a good suggestion. The Russian doll analogy. So Tupperware boxes. Let's go back, Sundish. I think I get what you're saying. Sundish, and you can correct me. Let's say if we had to put Tupperware containers in the same manner that we distinguish the branches of philosophy, we could do this. Do you agree, Sundish? If you're looking bird's eye view, you could pull out the bread bucket without pulling out the burger bucket, but you can't pull out the burger bucket without pulling the bread bucket. So Manish, is that kind of what you had in mind? Cool. Sumaya agrees. Neat. All right. Perfect. So I think we're right in saying this, right? That that you can have a world with bread that has no burgers, right? A world where bread exists, but burgers don't exist. Can you have the reverse? Can you have a world where burgers exist, but bread doesn't exist? And again, don't change the definitions of those things. Let's let them mean what they normally mean, right? Yeah, you couldn't have that. You couldn't have that. And again, so now we have an interesting kind of result, right? Let me put this like this, right? Let me grab myself a pen. There we go. Such a world makes sense, a world with bread but no burgers. However, such a world does not make sense, a bread with burgers but no bread. And for the same reasons that we said earlier, right? Somebody writes, no, not including lettuce and buns and those shenanigans. Yeah, you might have a world that has burgers. Like imagine, for instance, let me airbrush this for a second, right? And I chose bread for a good reason, because bread is a necessary ingredient of burgers. But let's imagine I were to do the following. Let's imagine let me grab my marker, my stuff here. I say lettuce, right? Could we have a world that has burgers but no lettuce? Could that world make sense? A world that has burgers but no lettuce. Yeah, that could make sense, right? A burger without lettuce is still a burger. Like when you go to McDonald's, yeah, their Big Mac, that's their flagship thing. It has lettuce, but the other stuff like a cheeseburger, just a regular quarter, whatever, they don't always put lettuce in everything. You could have a world with burgers but not lettuce. Yeah, it wouldn't be that good, and it probably would hurt your digestion. I'm a fan of having some roughage. I like to have some lettuce because it's going to be hard on your stomach anyways with all that lard. But the idea is there's a dependency relation here. And again, that's tracked by my Tupperware containers once again, right? My boxes. If you were to pull out, so let's go back to the idea of the Tupperware containers, right? If you had to pull out the outer container, you would thereby have to pull out the bread, right? So if burgers exist, then bread has to exist, but not the other way around. And if you want to do some formal logic with all this, you might say, unfortunately, they're all B's, right? You might say, if burger, then that's not like a notation that's official, BU. If burger, then bread, right? But not the other way around, right? You might want to make that even more explicit, and you want to say, and it is not the case that if bread, then burger. As we pointed out, because bread existed just fine without burgers for like millennia, right? Burgers, right? Do we agree with what's in purple? We're fine with that? If that's clear, type in clear. Again, notice I'm using a bit of the logic stuff, right? And we just want to take baby steps into this, right? Okay, cool. And if you just have bread, you don't have a burger, right? It's a necessary but not sufficient condition of burgerhood that you have bread. If you have the bread, it's a necessary but not sufficient ingredient. You'll need more, presumably at minimum just a burger patty or like a meat patty or something. But that's why I chose bread, right? It's a necessary ingredient. And the burger is a whole with parts. Like there's this, there's this stupid song they used to sing about that lists all the ingredients of McDonald's Big Mac. It was like ham and cheeseburger, blah, blah, lettuce and tomato. It was like a stupid song, and it would bore into your mind and you'd remember it, and you'd find yourself kind of craving one because you were listing off all the ingredients. So as far as marketing strategies go, it's a pretty good one. Here's a couple burgers. I don't mean to make your mouth water. I'm sorry if I am, if you're into burgers. Here's a bunch of burgers. And let's imagine, for instance, that, and again, we don't know where we're going to put this claim, but let's imagine that we're going to agree that it is true that, why am I making a grid? What is this grid nonsense? I don't want a grid. Okay. Cool. All right, I know what I'm making sense of. All right, let's undo this. Let's agree with the following statement. Let's say that this is true. There are two burgers. Remember, when we're using Quine's method for determining an ontology, we have to start with true sentences. And again, without making stuff up, right? Would you agree that this sentence is true? Like, there are two burgers? Like, we have to start with true senses. You can't do ontology. You can't do metaphysics in general if you're not even going to help yourself. Okay, so there are two burgers. Now, here's the fun part. So pay attention. This is where it's going to get fun. Because so far, everything we've been doing has been quite elementary. So someone says, okay, man, it's true. There are two burgers. So I'm going to say true, right? There are two burgers. This is true. And then we don't quite know if we're going to put that in the official box or the unofficial box, but it's a truth, and we got to have some truths. Here is one way I think that we all would understand that sentence to mean, right? There are two burgers. Here's one burger, and I'm going to use different colors here, right? And here's the second burger, right? So if you take common sense, right, and let's say you've never done philosophy or metaphysics, you say, all right, so there are two burgers, burger one and burger two, right? One on the left, one on the right. Cool. Now we're gonna take some cannabis. Now we're gonna have some fun. There are two burgers. Yeah, fair enough, man. Here we go. Are you ready, everyone? There are two burgers. Do this properly. Kind of went above, right between the lettuce and the tomato. Burger one. And burger two. All right. How do you like that, my friends? There are two burgers. It's true. See? Burger one. And I'm going to have some fun. Like I said, burger two. It's over here, right? And burger one. Burger one. I can't do this, says Carl. What do you think, my friends? What do you think of what I've just done? What's your gut response? Carl says, no, you can't do this. You know you're in for a wild ride with me. Yeah, it's still two burgers. It's still two burgers. The claim is true. It's an abomination. I like just give me your reflexes, right? We don't need, I'm not going to hold you to a high level of scrutiny. It's a Gerber and a Berber. That makes me laugh. If I ask for two burgers and they give me a bunch of burger ingredients scattered all over the place, I'm going to throw it in their face. And that's an interesting question for why that would be. It seems wrong, but by the way, it's true. The arrangement is important. Keep riffing. Jazz a bit. Jazz in the chat bar. And you must be puzzled, so take your time and sort this out. But I have 8 burgers in my fridge right now if I accept the picture. Well, how many ordinary, in common sense, Carl, how many burgers do you have in your fridge right now? Let's say. Make stuff up. 0. Okay, well. No. Are these parts, okay, let's clarify. Are these parts overlapping, yes or no? And I've been trying to be careful with my pen, so be charitable here. Are they overlapping? Does any ingredient figure in both burgers at the same place at the same time? Yes or no? Yeah, so go with me on my drawing, right? The onions are different, right? So burger one has a patty, the lettuce, white onions, bacon, pickles, cheese, meat, and the other bun. Burger two has bread, lettuce, mayo or something like that, red onions, well, tomato, red onions, pickle, cheese, patty, and this. Okay, so let's juxtapose these things for a second, just so we can have some. I'm just going to put over here the previous drawing I had made. It was kind of like this, just so we can remind ourselves what the contrast was. We had burger one and burger two was in front like this. And let's call the one at the top the common sense way of grouping burgers, and let's call this other one the not common sense. We won't even bother giving it a label. Which is to be preferred, the common sense way of grouping the burgers or the not common sense? Which is to be preferred? And the thing is, we kind of want to say the common sense, right? And I get that. I have that mood as well. Like in those moods, I want to say that. But now the question, this is where it's going to get tricky. Now you got to do the work here because I'm not going to do the work for you. Why? There's lots of things coming, my friend. There's lots. We're going to have some fun today. Why is the common sense way of grouping the correct way? Consistency, you'd have to unpack that. Repeatable, I don't know. I could totally repeat the uncommon way. Generally accepted, yes, but who cares? I don't see why it would be inconsistent. I don't see why this is not repeatable. I don't see why anyone should care about generally accepted. Otherwise, I can claim that every burger at a party. How so, though? If you take away one or two, no, how would I eat one burger at a time? So, okay. What is left is not a burger. If you take away one, what's left is not a burger. Okay, so if you take away this one, then you still be left with the burger, whereas if you take away the other, you'd still have a burger. Like, let's imagine I delete burger 2. I'm still left with a burger. One's still standing. It's still there. It's still a burger. Of course, I would have a burger. Say that in a non-circular or non-question begging manner. Let's say I've eaten burger 2. What am I left with? An answer without begging the question. Do not engage in something that presupposes the very thing that you're trying to prove. I eat burger 2 and I'm left with burger 1. I'm left with burger. It's a burger. Sumaya writes, are we assuming that they're put together like this or they're put in 4? They're put in 2, Sumaya. So there's 2 holes here. 2 holes. Gavin writes, could you argue that a property of a burger is the connected nature of all the ingredients? Gavin, meditate on connected nature as an expression and try to unpack that for me. Sumaya, because if they're all placed like this, then the purpose of a burger is failed. Yeah, but do purposes have to figure into what we're doing? So for instance, imagine when you ask, so let's pause with the chat bar. You folks are doing super well. Let's just pause because now I think I'll have too many things to handle. Let's just go back to Sumaya's comment at 10:47. Because if they're placed like this, then the purpose of a burger is failed. Let's pause. The question isn't what can we do with burgers? The question is what is a burger? And if I ask, is a whale a mammal? I don't care whether or not it's going to mean that it gets a tax exemption when it goes to the zoo or not, right? Like, you don't let that figure into your answer when you figure out whether or not a whale is a mammal. Pause with that and tell me if that makes sense, everyone. If, let's say I get a tax exemption if it turns out that whales are fish, it has nothing to do with the answer to whether or not the whale is a mammal. Do you agree? Let me agree if you agree. We're doing some philosophy here. So I want to take baby steps and I'm playing Socrates here. I want you to, like in Plato's dialogues, right? You always get like Socrates saying some nonsense and then everyone's like, yes, I agree, Socrates. It couldn't be clearer, right? Of course you're right. You word up, you know? You get all this stuff. Cool. So that can't do the work we want it to do, right? Common sense is also, who the hell cares about common sense? Could be wrong. Sumdish writes, a dog with human limbs transplanted is still a dog, but the common sense view would say that, all right, well, let's just stick to the burger. Let's not even go for dogs. We got lots on our plate, literally. Carl writes, a burger must have the necessary ingredients in a proper spatial orientation. This goes back to what Gavin was saying earlier. Proper spatial orientation. The picture fails because it fails to meet the vertical alignment required. I love the language. How to talk really smartly about like fast food. This candidate for reality, fast food, fails because it fails to meet the requirement of vertical alignment of burgers. Go to your nearest fast food place like Triple O's and talk about the ontological vertical alignment requirement of burgers. They put the pickle on top of the bun, so they're screwed, huh? Like when I first saw Triple O's put the pickle on top of the bun, I'm like, you can't do that. Why not? Right? It's like, why not? Gavin writes, all the ingredients are connected and stacked within the confines of a single bun layered on top of one another. But that description that you just said, Gavin, matches the image on the screen, the non-common sense way of carving. One's above, let's say 1A. Oops, that's not the color I want. 1A is above 1B. Let's call this 1A. Is above. The vertical requirement is met. Isn't verticality met? Let's just do verticality. You're going to need to add more than verticality if you want to get there, right? 2A. Verticality is met. Non-overlapping and vertical. Let me just get your consent on this. They're non-overlapping. Nothing double dips. Nothing qualifies for 2 burgers. Each ingredient only contributes to one burger. They're non-overlapping in vertical. 2A is above 2B. So we're going to need more. Sumaya writes, but it doesn't do what the containers do for a single burger. True, but who cares? I'm not quite sure. Like, that presupposes that that our knowledge of how the container works is more robust than the knowledge of what a burger is. You see that, Sumaya? Like, for instance, suppose I order a container of a burger. Here's the container, and it's given me part 2B and part 2A like this. To say that's misplaced in the container presupposes that the container somehow adjudicates what the constitution of the burger ought to be. Do you see that, Sumaya? Like, it's only as good as you're just kind of moving that debate over to the container as if the container now holds that answer. And then I want to ask why not, right? We'd want to ask the same questions of the container. Because it's true, let's say if you put that in, one's going to kind of fall down, right? Or something like that. But you can imagine containers being made differently. Here's a cross-section of the new containers for the weirdo world in which we're about to live. This is what they look like on the side. So that way you can put one part over here and you can put another part over here. Like, why not? And then the container would be fine. And Sumaya writes, but if you get a container with 1A and 2B, kind of like what I just shown here, then you don't have a burger, you have two halves of a burger. And what's the one word question I'm going to ask of that, Sumaya? The one word question that messes all us up. So take what Sumaya wrote. But if you get a container with 1A and 1B, then you don't have a burger, you have two halves of a burger. What's the one word question I'm going to ask of that? Why? Says who? Yeah. Why? That's exactly what we're trying to figure out. Carl says, this doesn't work because I can puree a burger and meet your requirement. And this was for Joe. That's interesting. The puree is interesting, right? Okay, so the puree is interesting. You want to meditate a bit on the puree for a second? I think that's neat. Let's meditate on that. If you want to meditate on the puree just for a second, tell me yes if you want to think about the puree. Joe said a burger must be presented in a manner where the user can ingest all the ingredients at the same time. Let's meditate on that a little bit. The puree. Okay, I take a burger and I put it in a blender. Is it still a burger? Yes or no? What do your intuitions tell you? And your intuitions are quick, but cool. No. Okay, cool. Let's backtrack because we haven't even, do we agree that the problem of the puree is a little more obvious to settle? It's still not obvious to figure out. But let's go back to here. Let's just not even go to the puree. What's wrong with the uncommon picture? Again, refocus now. What's wrong with this uncommon picture? Why is it wrong? I want you to be haunted by pictures of mountains and garlic pressers and burgers when you're done with this class. And again, what's wrong when I ask that's a request for a non-circular answer. So you're doing great, by the way. Vertical axial alignment and contiguity. Carl is adding bells and whistles to the requirements now. Vertical axial arrangement and contiguity. That seems to certainly be a little more robust than the previous one, right? And so if we accept, we'll see what other folks have, if we accept what Carl just wrote, the condition for burgerhood is vertical axial alignment and contiguity, then the uncommon way fails to qualify as a burger, but the common way succeeds. And these are necessary, but maybe you could want to add more. It could be, you need at least the 3 ingredients, right? Sumaya writes, so in short, our understanding of what a burger is not this. I don't know what you pick out by this, Sumaya. You mean the uncommon one? Certainly our understanding of what a burger is. This conflicts, yeah, as the name reveals, right? Yeah, you got it. Uncommon, literally, I mean, that wears its label on its sleeve. This is an uncommon way of carving burgers, right? But the question is, right, these ingredients, let's just remove this. Do we agree that these ingredients are not crazy glued together? All of these ingredients. Type agree if you agree. They're not crazy glued together. And uncommon can certainly be still valid, yeah, that's for sure. They're not crazy glued together. They're stacked. They're stacked, right? And the uncommon conception that I've just submitted for your consideration just kind of just says, look, as far as stacks go, right? Why not this, right? Does it offend your sensibilities? Let me ask you just really honestly here. So here I don't want you to overthink things. If I add a kilometer of distance between these two burgers and I carve them in the uncommon way I suggested, does that offend your sensibilities? They're a kilometer apart. Does that even bother you even more? Like they're not in the same box at Triple O's. Like they're like a kilometer apart. Does that offend your sensibilities? Like just be honest. And this is the thing, right? So, okay, so like where the hell are these yeses and nos coming from, right? And how much weight should they bear? We'll ask this when we do metaphysics. Tanya writes, to be qualified as a burger, it has to follow a certain arrangement and follow a specific form. Otherwise, it can be qualified as something else. Such as if one were to take just vegetables, it could possibly be considered a salad per se. Hence, having pieces miles apart does affect it. None of that changes what we've just said, Tanya. So let's look at what Tanya wrote. And again, I'm only concerned with the claims, not the people. Tanya, when I do this, right, I have, let me do my uncommon grouping, all of the necessary ingredients of burgerhood plus a few trimmings. I've got the bun in the bun, I've got the meat, and I've added some stuff, and nothing is redundant. Let's say I carved underneath the tomato here. If I had to redo it, let's say over here. There you go. So I was underneath the tomato. Do you see that, Tanya? Like I've got all the ingredients. It's not a question. It's a different issue than saying, here's a salad. Salad's not a burger. True, but that's not at all what's going on. Look, count the ingredients. Bread, patty, bread, and some additional toppings. Mayo as well, like all the additional. But even without the toppings, it would still, you'd have the necessary and sufficient ingredients of burgerhood. They're just not, and this is the key word, arranged in the same manner. The composition is not the same. Tanya, do you see that? Like what you said is true, but kind of misses the mark. It's a separate thing. Like this fully qualifies, right? And here's the thing is, well, all the work is being done by follow a specific form. And this captures the idea of putting it in a blender, right? This is the idea that I want to tease out, right? Your conception of what a material object is that confidently allows you to say it's this burger and it's that burger isn't just about the matter. It's about following a specific form, right? And it's not quite clear what the hell that would even mean, right? And it's not clear when we start, it seems to look like we're stipulating quite a bit, right? And as stated by Carl, they aren't aligned. Yeah, but the bottom line is, why should alignment make such a big deal? So that's the thing. So yes, the uncommon arrangement means that we violate Carl's law of alignment. So if I do this, it's true that they are vertical, contiguous, or whatever, but they violate the law of alignment or something like that. But the point is, why should all this matter, right? Why should all this matter? And all of these are, notice they're doing work we've got all these assumptions that we've never really put under the spotlight, the philosophical spotlight, right? And we just want to put them under the spotlight. Alignment matters for recognition. And so as Joe says, being able to ingest it. Yeah, but who the hell cares, right? Again, Carl, maybe I can't, if a whale is a mammal or not a mammal, I can or cannot do X, Y, Z. I can't drink this milk if it's not a mammal, if it's a fish. Who the hell cares? The fact that I desperately want milk and was hoping it'd be a mammal, who the hell cares what my goals are? How do my goals matter with what's out there in the world? Like, how does that change it? It's like, well, I wish my grass was shorter, and it just, my wish doesn't make it shorter, and who the hell cares? It's just long right now, right? So yeah, it's a food, true, but it's also a burger, right? You might say it's a clumsy way of doing it. It's not useful, right? But yeah, cool. My friends, did you like this? Was this a good warm-up exercise? Did you like that? Was this starting to puzzle you a little bit? Because we're pulling out these unstated assumptions from your brain and putting them under the spotlight. That's all I want to do. It's like, there's all this stuff, right, that you think, and you've never actually taken it out and put it right underneath the hot lamp of philosophy, right? And just figure this stuff out. Let's do the reading kit now. Let's look at professional work on this subject.